Okay. Hi viewers out there, I'm Lisa Crowley with Brockton Post, and this is Jerry Conefrey, who is running for Ward 3 City Council against Dennis Ianieri. Welcome, thank you for coming to my kitchen.
Thank you.
So Jerry, tell me, why are you running for Ward 3 City Councilor?
Well, I ran as a candidate 2 years ago. You know, I retired, I think, back in '06, and I decided that I really wanted to do more. So I took out papers and ran in at the at-large campaign. And
that was '06?
That was, no, that was actually in '09. I ran for at-large.
I remember that.
And that was a little bit more difficult, doing the whole city, trying to serve the city type of thing. And then I took out papers this year for Ward 3 because I've lived in Ward 3 all my, most of my adult life.
What street do you live on? Where
Gladwood
in Ward 3?
Street, right off of
Gladwood.
Pearl. It's
Off
on the other end of it, up on that end of it, Pearl. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
So, we're 3D. So that's where we've been. So we've been there for, I've had the house for 31 years, and I had a house years ago up in Brookfield for 10 years, in Anita Road. So yeah, so it was just the desire to do community service, work with people, do special things, try to help them with the issues to do with the taxes, try to make the city a better place. I have a child who's 12 years old, goes to West Middle School. So, you know, this is her city too, and I want it to be a safe city and a city that's going to still offer great opportunities for her.
Sure.
And I think that's what we have to do. We have to look for the next generation. So that's what I've been doing. That's
Gotcha.
why I took it out and why I started. Yeah.
May I ask, how old are you?
I'm older than 60.
Older than 60. Answer the question, because I think people are going to ask. You have a 12-year-old daughter.
Yes.
Did you get remarried?
Second marriage.
Second marriage.
Yeah, I have a daughter who's 38, lives in New Orleans.
Okay.
I have a daughter who's 36 who lives in New Hampshire, up in Ringe, New Hampshire. And a daughter who is 12, Bariana, who goes to West, yeah.
Fantastic.
West Middle, yeah.
I had to ask that question. Curious, without a doubt. What experience do you bring to the table to be a city councilor and take on an incumbent?
You know, the thing is to try, first of all, it is an uphill battle because you're always on the outside looking in, where he is on the inside looking out. He always has better sources of information than you do because he's actually been in the job for 8 years. Have I been satisfied with the services I've seen from him over 8 years? No. Has
Such
a number
as...
of people, well, you know, streets, maintenance of streets and things like that have come up. That's come up almost immediately. You know, when you walk the streets and you go door to door and you talk to the people, you find out that they've had this problem, and it's gone on year after year after year, and it hasn't been resolved. There's been nothing done to it, and in a couple of cases, you see streets that are in deplorable condition.
Well, what do you say to the powers that be, or maybe Dennis, if he was here opposite, saying, well, the city prioritizes, and this is how it goes?
This is exactly what you get for an answer. You talk to Ken Thompson out of the mayor's office. You know, everything starts with a question or a query, and you go from there to trying to find answers and try to get answers. So I'll give you an example. One of the persons I talked to, the first thing he said out of his mouth to me was, you know, they can't do our street here, and he was very upset about his street, etc. And then he said, but they can do that intersection up there on West Chestnut and Manley Street, the corner up there. So that whole intersection was redone. And so it evolved that as I looked into this and tried to find out, then you talk to Ken Thompson, he talks about there being, each council was given X number of dollars from the mayor to work on these streets from the Chapter 90 funds. Engineering department, not engineering, but the, what do you call it? I'm trying to think of his name. Thorson? I want to say? No.
That would be highway, public utilities, public works.
DPW, DPW, Mr. Thorson. Prioritizes the streets that need some work, and the engineers actually do look into it and make some decisions about if you have to do, like redo all the catch basins. You might have to rebuild them all. You might have to pull out all the storm drains and everything else and redo the sewer lines. So all of that becomes a part of the cost for redoing the street. So in some cases, there's not enough money to do that, so they do a less costly job. So those are the kinds of things you find. But everything starts with a question. Every time you're dealing with something, it's always someone asking you something, trying to find out something, and you try to facilitate it by going out and talking and making the phone calls and chasing it down.
Do you think that can be changed? Do you want to change the priority list? I mean, I think common sense would say the big intersections are pretty important, but how do you get some of these little ones, or are we just trapped by money?
These are side streets. Most of these are side streets. Some of them accepted, some of them are not accepted. I think the issue there too is you almost have a split, a dichotomy there, where you have streets that are accepted, streets that are not accepted. These people are paying the same amount of taxes as the people over here are, but they're not getting the same services for their tax dollar.
So they're not public ways?
They're not, yeah, they're not public ways. They've not been accepted.
Are they new developments, or are they old streets?
Some of these have been there 20 years. 20 or 30 years, some of them.
So maybe get them on the list. That's the first step.
That was, we were told that was going to happen even on Gladwood Street years ago, and what happened is the contractor put in 2 houses. He puts a single lane out to Pearl, which is like a driveway almost, so it's never going to get to be accepted. But fortunately for us on Gladwood, because they had so many problems when they put in the 2 big mega houses the contractor put in, they ended up, he did maybe the first 150 feet of the road. The city ended up doing the rest because the water line was like a 1-inch or a 3-inch line. They had to put in a whole new water line to all the houses. On paper, it was supposed to go out to Pearl Street, never went out to Pearl Street. You come down the street, they put in catch basins that weren't there because they had none for drainage. Then they put in the ones that were down below. They rebuilt all of those. The sewer lines, or the water line, drainage lines, were blocked. So they did a whole process where they replaced sewer pipes going out and everything else, and they replaced the central hub in the middle of the intersection. By the time they got done, they had rebuilt the whole road anyway. So when it was T.L. Edwards that came in and did the finest finishing job, and he was fantastic. Him and his crew, they came in. They worked around the clock. You never saw a team work so hard as these guys did. And they redid the street. So whether Gladwood's accepted or not doesn't matter right now, because all the maintenance issues, fire hydrants that weren't on the street are now on the street that weren't there. But that didn't come as an act of the city councilor. That came out of the necessity of the flooding in the street area. And that's where that came from. So
how do we help the rest of the people who are suffering from these drainage issues? Is there a solution?
Well, you have to at least be receptive to try and find the answers for them, and see if there's funds available.
Do you think Dennis, Mr. Ianieri, is doing enough to that? Do you think he's active enough? I think that's one of the things that's...
I know right now he's got water on the knee. He's had it for about 6 weeks. So I haven't seen him. I've been walking door to door, day after day, week after week. I haven't seen him out there. He's got a lot of signs out there. So he's been in the office for 8 years. Do I think he's going out there as often as he should, or making the contacts? I think he's waiting for people to contact him. And I think my effort as a candidate is to initiate contact.
Now,
so I'm trying to do that. Yeah.
Now you said, I think you're retired. I don't know if Dennis works. It is a part-time job, being a city councilor. And it's helpful. I think you work as well, a substitute teacher.
Substitute, yeah. Usually in Easton.
In Easton.
Doing a lot in Easton.
When you were a teacher, what did you retire from?
I was over at the Whitman School. I taught there, and it's Whitman School in Brockton on Manamith Street. I taught there for the last 10 years of my career. I taught for 36 years in the city of Brockton.
Elementary level?
Elementary. I was in elementary. I was a teaching assistant principal. Okay. So I still had teaching duties, and I still had administrative duties. So for the last 10 years, that's what I did. But I always, if someone asks me what I did, I always tell them I was a teacher.
Sure.
Because I was always a teacher for 36 years.
Absolutely. So
that's how I always look at it. So yeah.
So it's come up, in the city, the council at large race, whether city councilors should be paid or not. It is a part-time
I don't know
job.
what they pay. I've never even asked. I really haven't. I have not asked a single person about it. Someone was talking about wanting to make them full-time, and I'm like, I don't see why an at-large person would have any different role than, say, someone else who's is a ward counselor, and I don't know what any of those jobs pay. I assume it's only $6,000 or $7,000. I don't know. I've never asked. I know school committee used to be without pay, so I don't know, and I think they now get something. It's not to do with the money. It's to do with trying to do a service for the people. I just want to be able to go out there and help people and do what I can. Try to help them find answers, and see if you can find solutions for some of their problems. And I think that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from wanting to do things for people, wanting to help people.
Have you been involved in any other organizations or any other boards, elected or appointed?
Oh God, over 100 years. I was the Boy Scouts chairman of the Pokanoket district back in 1971-72. I worked for the YMCA before I went into teaching. I used to work at the downtown YMCA. I was the after-school busing coordinator for them. What else? The Little Red Schoolhouse for countless years, going in there and helping out and being on the board for that. And now the last few years, I just go in and I help out with different events that they have, like when they have their Christmas open house. I go in and I do block printing with the kids, Santa Claus prints and things like that. Well, I have an art background as well.
I saw you last year.
Yeah. I always do the prints up in the back corner on the second floor. Yeah, so I do that. Yeah, I do all those kinds of things. My daughter's in youth soccer for Brockton Youth Soccer. The last game is Saturday.
Yes, I'm coaching a team. We're waiting to see if the storm's going to hit.
Yeah.
I've got a group of under 10 girls.
Okay, well, she's just turned 12, so she's in the 12 and under. So we're doing that. So that's Saturday, and So yeah, my wife's very active in the Girl Scouts. She's
What's
very
your wife's
active.
name?
Deborah Mullen. Deborah Mullen.
Oh, okay.
She kept her maiden name. I kept mine.
Sure. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, it's hard sometimes.
Let's throw that in there. But my daughter Bariana and her both do very active things with the Girl Scouts, and they do leadership training and stuff like that. And my daughter was, I think, what do they call it, like it's a kid that was like 12 or 13, and they're doing like a PA type of thing where they're helping out with the kids at camp this summer, so she did that.
Well, that's
so there's a lot of stuff that we do, and we're very active, and we do a lot. My wife belongs to the Brockton, what do you call it? Horticultural group, what do you call it?
The Garden Club.
Garden Club, thank you.
That's where I've met her.
Brockton Garden Club, yes. Debbie's active in the Garden Club.
Yeah, me too. I missed the meeting on Monday.
She
I got
was
my
there.
weeks messed up. I kept thinking it was Halloween. I'm like, I had more time that day. So do you think you have more time to be active?
Oh yeah,
or
definitely.
do you think Dennis
definitely.
just has, rode his incumbency?
He's a salesman. He sells cars. He's been a car salesman for years. He even sold me my extended warranty, because I always try.
No problems with that?
Oh, it's already gone by, and the money's gone. But the car, I've always had Fords. I've always had Ford LTDs or a Ford Crown Vic, and the last car out I bought was a Lincoln Town car, and I bought that. I didn't buy it locally. I bought it out of Brockton. But I've always liked Lincolns and Crown Vics. That's basically the big car. I like a big car ride. But we used to use it for trips, so that's why I bought those. But so he sells automobiles.
So you guys know each other?
Yeah, we know each other. We've had conversations in the past. No hostility at the time, at the time.
But now we're in election season.
Well, we're getting testy a couple of times. Yes.
I guess he may ask, what have you done since running for City Councilor 2 years ago? Have you been active? Have you been involved? I haven't seen you in meetings.
Yeah, you don't. Well just turn on the cable. You turn them on the TV. It's like the last finance meeting. I didn't hear him speak at all during that meeting. And that was when they were talking about the power issues and things like that during the hurricane, and stuff. But I didn't hear him speak, and I looked, and you could see the audience. There were like 6 or 7 people there, and he was at the meeting the other night for the city council, because he was yes and yes and yes every time Paul was hitting the gavel on this, and we're doing, you know. So they went through the roll call repeatedly. So. On different expenditures, but yeah, so
you're saying you would be,
so you don't really, you know, as a candidate, I don't need to be there to see it all. I mean, I can see that right from my home, and it's a little easier schedule wise. And then as a person in getting elected, yes, I'll be there every time. Yeah, okay. I've always been a very dedicated person. Once I take on a responsibility, I do that responsibility.
Great. Well, you had mentioned the power plant. Are you for or against?
Well, I meant the loss of power.
Oh, right.
But
yeah,
I can talk about the power plant. We can talk about the power plant.
Yes, I know, that was the storm, but also Alfredo Andreas was there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know, talking about the water issue. Yes, which...
I've spoken against the power plant, okay, and I've held that position. I don't know if I'm holding it for the same reason other people are holding that the reason they don't want it.
Why don't you want it?
I don't want it down in Ward 4. I don't, you know, if you look at Ward 4, you've got the sewer beds down there, you've had the odors that come out of there constantly, the people live down there. If you're on 11th and 12th and 13th Street coming off of the road there, you end up with those people not only getting that, but then they got all the buses that are warming up their engines in the morning, so then you end up with all of that as well. So you got all that carbon monoxide floating in the air. Now you're going to throw a power plant on top of it. The people in Ward 4 have just had, I think they've had their share. And I think, and I spoke to this during one of the other cable interviews, that where you are in a city with such a large population of people, that it wasn't a good selection place. You know, it really wasn't. They could have put it somewhere, you know, where they could put a casino, you know, down there in Middleborough or something like that. You know, I mean, and I'm not trying to throw it to Middleborough, but I'm just saying that there were plenty of places that had water resources as well as land area.
As well as the gas tie-in. That's why it's there, the gas tie-in. Boston Gas is right there.
But it avoids the, you know, what I'm saying is the other issue is the air quality.
The air quality.
The air quality is a key issue.
I think it's interesting that the air quality tests, according to the opposition, are based out of Logan and Boston versus the immediate area. That doesn't seem right. You know,
they said they were going to do testing locally. That was initiated some months ago, I think.
Yes, it's taken, and I thought it was still up in the air, but if it's changed, I'll double check. But
my information was months ago, when I heard about it, that they were going to do it.
They all went to the State House and said, you know, we want monitoring here, but I don't remember what the answer was, if that actually took place.
Yeah, I thought it had, but
I know they're asking for that, you know, but it's really interesting, the power plant situation. They might be looking for water from Aquaria, which brings up, you know, my next question. I don't know if you've heard, but there's, I think Ron Matta has brought it up, as well as Kate Archard has brought it up, that the city is paying $4 to $5 million. We know that the city's paying for water that we're not using through the desal plant. It's come up in the last few days that Stop the Power has an attorney who is saying that there's a portion of the contract that says no, you know, Brockton does not have to pay for this water. I know I'm looking, you know, into the story. I need an objective opinion as well, but what do you think should be done? I mean, do we need to look at that at this point? I mean, is it going to be adjudicated is a big question, but $4 to $5 million is a lot of money to the city.
Well, I think what Matter was saying, and what he's been stating on it, is that the matter of compliance is on their side of it, not on the city of Brockton's side of it, in the sense that, in other words, this is a requirement for them that they must provide water or must be able to provide water. And he's trying to say that it's not in the contract. Where does it say that you're going to pay X number of millions of dollars per year to them in the contract? And and I guess the issue coming back from city councilors was basically that the whole agreement for them to set up the lines, set everything up, was that we were going to do this. Okay, in other words, it was a commitment made at the city level to honor that and do that. You know, looking at the issues about whether they can sell directly to the power plant or not. I think one of the city councilors, I'm trying to think of her name,
Michelle Dubois.
Michelle Dubois. She asked maybe 20 questions that night of one of the wholesalers.
Yeah, the
he's also a
consultant.
wholesaler,
Yes.
and he's a consultant.
Jeff Hansen of Hansen Associates.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. There was a confusion of his
remember
name.
better than me, but the difference was, what I thought was important was she kept itching away to find out, could they do this? And what Aquaria was trying to say is, well, they could be recognized as a wholesaler. And it still couldn't be sold as a wholesaler to them without it going through Brockton pipes. And this is where the wheeling issue that she kept talking about was coming up and things like that. So yes, I do watch the city council meetings, but I was impressed that she nailed them down, and continued to lock in his parameters on where he could go with this, what he was doing. And basically, it was saying that no, they can't do it, not through Brockton.
Right, and that's what we're hearing. Now on the table is the 4 to 5 million. Would you be questioning the same way Michelle is questioning if Aquaria comes in before you, or Hansen, or whether it's the contract, the 4 to 5 million, or anything that has to do with the desal plant? Would you try and stay up on those things and ask questions?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think that's where I basically have started, even when we started talking about some of the things that have happened in the ward itself. But the issue with trying to find out things is, you always have to dig deeper, keep digging deeper. But I really do like how she asked her questions and got all her answers. Yeah,
she was doing her best.
I thought she did a good job. And now I don't know if she has a law background or not, but she did a good job nailing them down and talking about the wheeling and finding out that it still would have to go through Brockton pipes. So, and then that's an issue that the city could say no to.
Sure.
So,
but
yes, I tend to be investigative as I do things. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I tend to investigate.
That's interesting to see. I think people are looking for. I think that's why the part-time, pay or full-time pay for the counselors coming up. I think people want somebody in there looking all the time. And I guess we're still on water. It seems to be the year of water here. I think we're going into the age of Aquarius, according to those astrologers. But water, you had mentioned Mr. Thorson and the water bills.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned something earlier about your own situation. What do you think needs to be done at this point? We're at the 2-year look back. Bob Ford and others thought they were going to be out of the woods. And I mean, do you think Mr. Thorson should be fired, demoted?
Well, I haven't looked at him in his position. I only met him the other night for the first time, was at the meeting with the USI people. And he seemed very polite, very courteous, that type of thing. I know there are issues, there are all kinds of issues to lock back in with Mr. Thorson. But the thing that I would say about it is, anything that he presented that night, he was very effective with, and the USI people were very effective with. Do I think this has been handled correctly? No. No, I think it's been handled extremely poorly. I mean, that's a bad way of saying it. Extremely bad, or whatever, leave it. But I think they could have, they should have had some better way of resolving it than what they did. And even if they prorated it down or did something, but to tell someone that they're going to pay an extra $8,000, or tell someone they got a bill for another $4,000 or something like that, and they've been paying all along, then I think the city needs to look back at that. Are they counting that as the income into their tax base? that they didn't have in there. So now they're counting on that for expenditures this year. Is that why they're pressing so hard on these people?
Mm-hmm.
As far as myself, I don't know where I am with this thing because
What
they
happened?
just put the meter in about 2-3 weeks ago.
Now, did you request the new meter, or is this part of the
Well, I was talking to a
placement?
man named Peter Wren, who works out of the water department, and
Okay.
a real great guy, nice, very nice to talk to and everything else. And I said, the bill came in, it's got the letter P here saying it projected, and it said, you know, in very small print that, you know, you needed to contact them if you had a question, etc. So we did that. And that's where we found out that the meter hasn't been working for 2 years, etc. And we've always had new meters put in. I mean, there's never been, you know, they had the black control outside and everything else. But so now what they did is they came in the other day, they took out the meter that was in there, they took a reading off of it, record that reading to you, and you sign the document that this is where the meter stopped. Mm-hmm. And then they start from there with the new USI meter. Mm-hmm. And they go forward from there, and they're going to go back, I guess, after 6 months or whatever it is, then they're going to do a projection back to the last 2 years. So I don't know what I'm going to owe yet. I'm like anybody else in that situation. And that's all new to me. That wasn't out there back in
when this all exploded.
June or July, when you were getting your paper signed and going door to door. This is all something that I now find myself in as well with some of these other
So you
people.
had, like other people, you had actuals that are now being said
Yeah,
projected.
projected, yeah.
So was your bill consistent throughout that whole time?
It always stayed about $190 to $230. It'd go up and down a little bit, but it was never.
In the ballpark.
Yeah, it was like every 3 months would be about. So you were paying
Sure.
$600 or $700 a year in water bills.
So are you fearing you're going to get a massive hit, like, oh, you've got a
Well,
leak?
no,
You've got a leak.
I'm not going to fear it. We'll deal with it when it comes, if it comes. But yeah, you know, you
Interesting.
just do what you have to do. You know.
Yeah, and cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Michelle has made a move to do another move on the 2-year look back.
Yeah.
They haven't quite gotten there yet. But, you know, there's so many things going on.
That was her resolve.
Yes,
other
the
night.
resolve.
She put the resolve in the other night. Yeah.
That's, what did she do? Do you recall?
She put it in for so that it would be resolved going in, so that they could look at it, and goes to study, and then from study it comes back out after the council's looked at it. And
What did the
and
resolve say, though? Do you recall what the difference?
Oh,
I know I should be looking it up.
It was something to do with the look back.
That's okay. If you, I'll look it
I'm
up.
not sure of all the information on it, but it was in other words for a family that was one of the families was really looking at a hardship where they might even have to sell their house because they can't afford to keep it now.
Some sort of
And
exception
there was really
prorated.
some issue that come up, and
Yeah,
so
there's
she
a
was
number
doing
of
this for this. It
particular
wasn't
family.
it wasn't the Ford family. It was a
Yeah,
different
no,
family.
someone else.
Someone
Yeah,
else. Yeah.
we've been hearing different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is a mess.
Yeah.
Who do you think didn't handle it right? If it wasn't Thorson, who
Well,
was it?
I think it's the whole the leadership of the city at the time. That should have been handled much better than it was. I mean, people were thrown these bills, all of a sudden told you owed thousands and thousands of dollars and things like that, and then
No, and of
you
course
know,
we're
and
quarterbacking.
I think you know, you saw a number of people in the forefront of it, but I think that there could have been more leadership
What do you
involved out to the people immediately.
Now I mean, we're doing some Monday night quarterbacking, but what do you think should have
And
been
it's after
done?
the fact. It's
Yeah,
after the fact.
exactly.
So everyone
What do you think should
you
have
can
been
always
done, though?
second guess something better.
Is there anything you would have done differently? Do you think the mayor should have, you know, gotten the audit quicker, privately, stuck to her guns? She said, you know, she wished she kind of went back instead of prolonging it, you know, because we ended up at the same place.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know.
I think she could have been more in the forefront. Yeah, I think she could have been more up front in the media and on the radio and on the TV about it and stuff like that. I mean, I don't recall her being that much out front. I mean, it was going through. You had different councilors talking about it. You had the Thorson talking about it and things like that. But I think, yeah, there could have been a lot more leadership at the top on the top of the issue when it first came out. But that's, again, just like you were saying, we're second guessing.
Right.
You know,
I know,
you know,
I know.
and you know, and it's
Everybody
always,
wishes.
and everyone can be a genius after the fact,
Right.
but
There were
but
a lot
it's,
of
you know.
personality issues that have worked into the whole water problem. You know, people name calling, whether it be behind the scenes or right there in public, and I don't think that ever works out well.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully it'll work out. You know, there are resolves on the table, and they are working towards it. Some people will probably just have to end up at the appellate tax board.
Yeah.
So Ward 3 specifically, what issues are there in Ward 3 that, you know?
You know, well, there are a number of issues. I mean, you know, we talk about, just going back to one person came up to me and it was, he had questioned why he couldn't get information. I guess the enterprise had asked Bernardi, Hyundai, and Honda what their interest rate was on that loan. Okay, so the loan was that they had was a $16 million loan that they received, and because it was federal money, and I guess they refused to tell them what the interest rate was.
The city refused?
No, the Bernardi refused to tell them what the rate was. Okay, so you start digging, and you find out that the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 gave $536 million, that's a federal grant program, in bond money to the state of Massachusetts. So then you look up that information. Well, the money was dispersed to counties in the state of Massachusetts. Some counties don't have county government.
Right.
Okay? Some counties do. So you had two types of bonds. You had a bond which is a, what do they call it? Recovery Zone Facility Bond, which is for the building of businesses and taking old businesses and redoing them. And then you have a Recovery Zone Economic Development Bond, which is for creating jobs. Okay? So Plymouth County received $25 million for facility bonds, and they received $17 million for economic development bonds. Thank you. So what happened is they didn't want to handle it, so it went back to mass development. So mass development is basically the ones that have issued this. So as you go down the line, you hear my opponent talk about how they put this $22 million deal together for this company. And then you hear the mayor talking at the citywide Democratic Committee meeting and talking about her $22 million bond. Well, you look into the information about the bonds, and they do have a floating ability where they can go up on them, okay? As the project starts here and ends here, they can. So it turns out that Bernardi itself puts it right in the website that they have a $16 million federal bond from the recovery zone.
Yes.
Recovery zone federal bond, facility bond. So now you find out afterwards that the land, which used to be Northern Isle, was sold for $6,800,000. Okay. So you find that out. Okay. But you've got 16 million here, you've got 6.8 over here. Okay. You've got the mayor saying it was 22 million was the bond that she reported that night at the meeting. And then you've got Dennis over here saying it was 22 something million dollars. Okay.
22.8.
22.8, yeah. So anyway, you take a look at it, okay, did we end up also paying for the property? Would that other, if that's the case, was there $6 million that was used also to pay for the down on the property? It's nice to have, it's a win for Brockton to have a business there where a business had failed or had gone out. It's nice to have them there. They gave them a TIF, and I talked with Paul Sullivan out of the assessor's office, and that TIF was for starts based on 2011, so it's based on the 6.8.
Okay.
Okay. and I think the rate for per thousand is $29.55 or something like that for businesses.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
So it turns out that at that rate, they're going to pay $201,000 this year.
Okay.
Whereas if it was based on the whole, it would be $679,000 a year.
Basically 3 times.
Yeah, so now you find out that it starts here, so it's 2012, the TIF goes into 2020.
Okay, so 8
So it's
years.
a 9-year, it's actually 9 years.
Started in
9
2011.
fiscal years that you're not going to see full. So
Right.
it's a great deal for Bernardi Hyundai.
It is. There's been a lot of talk about the TIFs and whether, I think it's whether they stay is going to be a big problem. We saw what happened with the solar company that got all these breaks and still packed up after a couple years and went to China. The TIFs are tough. Whether Bernardi comes in without these breaks, these deals, is a big question.
Well, the big issue is if you're looking at the surrounding towns, our rates are much higher for business properties. Okay, and if you look at your assessment value for the city of Brockton, 3 years ago it was like $8 billion, $8.5 billion or something like that. As you look at it, it had a 18% decline, it had a 12% decline, it had a 4% decline, it's now somewhere around $5.5 billion. So the assessments have dropped.
So it's about $3 billion we're not getting
back. 2 to 3,
right.
two. So
adjusting
that's tax rates that are coming off of there, that's money that's not coming in from revenue. So you look at it, it's nice that Bernardi Hyundai is in there, you know, where there used to be 200 trees, there's now 200 light poles. You know, they've got gas tanks in the ground there up in the back of the property and stuff like that. I don't know if any of those things were environmentally looked into or environmental impact statements ever came out on that.
I would assume they would have to go through the design.
There were
site
notices
plan
given
review
out to people who lived in or
the
worked
neighborhood,
worked in that area. The notices did go out, so I'm sure it was done according to Hoyle, the way it should have been done.
So would you want more of that information coming out as the process goes?
I think it should have come out.
Would you do that?
I think
hey,
it should have come out.
This much of a deal.
Yeah, it should have come out at the time they announced all of this. You know, it shouldn't have to be something that the public or a person running for office or a person who's sitting home in their house and reading the newspaper, they should know all this information, you know.
Well, Dennis
maybe it's too much information, maybe it is, but I don't think it is. I think, you know, it's nice that they're there and it's nice that it's a win-win for Brockton, but it's not producing
as much revenue
the tax base that people are looking at it thinking it's going to change how much they're going to have to pay in taxes. It's not going to have that impact, not until the year 2020.
Looks like we are just about at the end of our interview. I just have a couple of quick questions. We were calling them the Fast Four. It was supposed to be 5, I think I mentioned earlier, but I forgot to do 5 questions. So we're only going to do 4. So, quick question. What is the name of the grassroots movement that has occupied Boston, New York, San Francisco, LA?
It's Occupy Boston.
Occupy Boston,
so
exactly.
They're still in there,
They made it through the snowstorm.
Yeah, they survived it.
I can't believe it. We're taking odds. How long do you think it's going to take them to move out?
Oh, I don't know. I think they're going to stay there another month or so. They've got sponsors.
Yeah.
So they've got financial support going for
They're
this.
finally getting that, which is key. Which is key to that movement.
It may not end quickly.
It may not. It just might not. What dictator, Libyan dictator, was shot or executed 2 weeks ago, or just about 2 weeks ago?
Omar Gaddafi. He's
you
gone.
got it. He is gone. He is gone. Now here are the 2 easy questions. What is your name and what are you running for?
Gerald E. Conefrey, and I'm running for Ward Councilor, Ward 3, and I need your vote, and I'm asking you to please think of me when you go to the polls on Tuesday, November 8th, because I do need your support and I do need your vote. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, folks. Get out and vote Tuesday, November 8th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you for watching. All right.
I guess that's it.
That's pretty much it. All right. Okay.